Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to RLAfterShock, the longest-running independent podcast for everything that is Rocket League esports in the European scene. I'm the Eternal J, and for this week, we're not joined by Digital Bacon. He's actually out from a throat infection, unfortunately, so he wasn't even sure if he was going to make it this week. I had a bit of a nap to try to see if he can recover himself. Did not quite work out, so get better soon, Bacon, but also at the same time, fuck you for abandoning me for this week. Instead, I've got a jar of jam, as appropriately titled. We're swapping out one piece of food for another. How you doing today, man?
It's great to be back. It's been a while, but it's great to be talking some Rocket League yet again. Well, again, our best wishes to Bacon, or as Jay usually puts it, lovingly. Fuck you. And I mean, hey, it's nap is as good as it gets. But how about some Rocket League, Jay? What about Rocket League this week?
Yeah, Rocket League has happened this week. It has been a bit of a slow one, though. You know, it's sort of like been a bit more of the same old sort of stuff. So, like, I'm hoping that you've kept up with everything as of late. I know you were saying that you weren't 100% with the RLCS, but that's fine because I actually managed to get some VODs in this week. For those of you who've been keeping up with the show, you'll know that I had like no time to myself, and despite the fact that I was away over the weekend doing an event, I still managed to catch up with the RLCS. So I've actually got shit to talk about for once, and my understanding is that you were on the B stream for Rival Series this past week, weren't you?
Indeed, it has been a pleasure to hosting the event with IRLeague and FaZe being the casters, and we saw some strange stuff. A couple of series where you could see who the winner is going to be, but even then, the gameplay has not. I don't think it has been up to par for the Rival Series, and during the broadcast, especially IRLeague and FaZe made it known.
Yeah, I caught that much at least. Actually, fun fact, during the Servette Geneva series on the B stream, I was actually standing behind Servette when he was playing, because he was also at the same event that I was. So they had to like set him up with a PC and everything. So I stood behind him, and I got a quick glimpse of how that series went. But we're going to talk about that in more detail as we get to our RLCS and Rival Series roundups at the very end of the show, as we always do. But before that point, we've got to do some mailbag questions and a special piece of news about the European scene that has finally lifted some of the pressure off of the bubble scene areas, and all that to come here on the 65th episode of RLAfterShock. Let's do the news, and there's only one piece of news to talk about. Again, like I said, a bit of a positive for the European scene is that Johnny, earlier this week, Mr. Johnnyboi himself, announced the European Invitational. The best EU, RLCS and Rival Series teams joined Sandrock Gaming, a team that we all know from the Middle East, in a 3v3 competition for their share of $20,000 this month. In fact, as we're doing the show live, if you go to Johnnyboi's channel, you can actually watch the qualifier action. In particular from the Rival Series teams. So they're going to get the Rival Series teams to qualify in and join the Championship Series squads that they have invited. We haven't got any details on who's been invited as of right now. We only know that this is a thing that's going down. But honestly, I don't give a fuck who's invited, because we've got a $20,000 EU tournament that got approved for once, Jam.
Wow, this is big news, really, and something that would be great if it perhaps had some more non-Rival Series teams, perhaps a couple of bubble teams. But even in this case, it's something different, something that folks can watch even when it's not during the weekends, the official broadcast. I do believe the official word is actually that all of the 10 RLCS teams have been invited. Plus, of course, the Sandrock Gaming that John is pretty well familiar with. And right now, as I'm looking at the bracket for the Rival Series team who are trying to get qualified, not that many surprises. Team Vertex is out. Baguette Squad is out. Surprisingly enough, Solari is out. But they've been great during the A broadcast. Or A stream last week, but during the B stream, it was not the best Solaris. Somehow, like, there's a switch happened between 2 days. So them losing specifically against Servette Geneva Esports, out of all teams.
I mean, yeah, I was going to say, like, you know, that's probably the big shocker of that whole fucking thing. Yeah, right now we've got RCD against Weedem Girls in the finals. I think that because it's 5 slots, those guys may already be through right now, and especially as on the stream, they're playing out the Triple Trouble versus Notorious Legion match. I'm going to guess that is one of the spots they're looking to qualify to. So... yeah, I think we can just roughly get sort of like seedings as well if we play out the whole bracket, but there's enough room for 5 people to make their way into this one.
Yep.
So, yeah, there you go. That's the live qualifiers going on right now. If it's still going on by the time the show's over, then if you're watching us live on Twitch, we'll hand you over to Johnnyboi stream so you can see how that action's going down. But for now, obviously, this is a big sort of like, a big thing. I mean, we could talk about how obviously, we could talk about how it's such a great thing just to see EU getting some more stuff. But as you say, there could have been a bit of an opportunity to involve more of the bubble scene and more of the rest of Europe as well in a tournament like this. I think that it was a missed opportunity not to have an open qualifier, for example, to allow the chances for some of the other squads to get their stab in the dark.
Yeah, because while the professionals are usually the ones who are complaining, there's nothing to do during the week. I feel it's also a big boon for the scene as a whole to get involved as many people as possible, so that players who perhaps cannot break that barrier of the plans, or perhaps couldn't participate in plans for one reason or the other, could have actually went for it, tried for it, or just even if you get a chance, do something like that. You obviously try to, some of the people at the very least, try to rise up to the occasion. But even this is better than nothing, and perhaps we'll see something similar in the future. I'm also wondering exactly where the funding for this came in through. Perhaps we're going to see it during the official stream, seeing some sponsorship.
My understanding is that it was Incivic, who just basically gave them all the money. Okay. Dude's fucking loaded.
I thought he was involved. He, I do believe, is the founder or the co-founder of Sandrock Gaming. But the participation of Sandrock Gaming in that tournament, in a way, is warranted. They have been taking the European scene by storm in the tournaments that have been happening. Although so far, a majority of these games that they've been winning against European teams been against the caliber of teams from the rival series. So stacking them up against RLCS teams, I still feel like they're gonna drop out in the same round of teams as the rest of the rivals, and perhaps they're gonna beat one RLCS team, perhaps one of the weaker ones, TSM, Monaco, but I don't see them upsetting any of the big ones.
I mean, obviously, it's all yet to be seen. The opportunity is still there, and I'd like to see the opportunity being seized by Sandrock Gaming. I just wish there was another opportunity for other teams down the road. And obviously, it's also a big boost for the Asian scene. Obviously, with Sandrock being a bunch of players and a team from the Middle East, so maybe there might be something else involved there. But certainly a proving ground for them, and all in all, just a nice little side thing that we can see happen in the context of what's going on in the Championship Series. Seeing everybody just sort of play separately, seeing that as the only tournament that's going on right now, it's like a bit of a breath of fresh air. So there you go. That's all that's being said. Again, big stuff coming in from Johnny, and of course, big stuff that Sonodex have allowed this shit to happen. And now if only we can get the Rewind Gaming projects that were cancelled and the Omen project that was also cancelled, and then we will really fucking fine. Anyway, I'm not going to delve into that today. That's basically it for the news. The only really big news piece that we had to cover here, Jam. A lot of it is mostly just about the RLCS and the rival series. So there you go. But we do have a little bit of a mailbag segment to go through, and I hope you're ready for these, Jam, because this is where we can get some very interesting little topics and very interesting little discussions to go off of. Because for those of you who might not be aware, you can go ahead and join our Discord, and you can ask us questions in the mailbag channel, which chances I will answer on a live episode of RLAfterShock. And in this week, we have 2 questions, one coming in from Velixo and one coming in from MattBlue. We'll start with Velixo's question. This is about the Katowice Olympics Qualifier and the Interworld Open, obviously, that got announced and leaked last week. So his question is, what are your way too early top picks for EU countries and teams qualifying for the Katowice Olympic qualifiers? Jam, are you familiar with the formatting of how the Katowice stuff and how the Interworld Open is going to work as a whole?
I believe I am, although there has been a little bit of confusion. So as far as I know, there are a series of selection of countries that have been pre-selected. Japan, for example, just goes straight to the final because they are the host of the 2020 Olympics. But countries like Australia, Brazil, Canada, China, France, Germany, United Kingdom, and United States are going to get their own in-country qualifier. So teams will be forming and playing in a double elimination bracket. And then there's going to be a more of a broader qualifier for Africa, for Asia, mainland Asia, and as well as maritime and Oceania Asia, Europe, for the countries that have not been listed previously, Latin America, and Middle East. So in total, 16 teams should be going to Tokyo by the end. The qualifiers in Katowice, that would be the middle ground, is going to be over.
I think 16 teams to Katowice and then 8 teams to...
You might be right. Yep, it is 16 teams to Katowice and then yada, 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 yada. Top 2 teams from each group automatically advancing to the World Finals in Tokyo to join Japan. So 5 teams in total. Huh.
So then,
you can see my surprise because some of the stuff I'm reading for the first time.
So let's go through some of these picks then. Obviously, we're talking about players and teams who are to qualify for each of the individual countries and who they're going to represent. Let's start with Australia, for example. Who do you think you're? Obviously. Do you know what? Actually, no. Fuck that. We're not going to do any of the teams outside of Europe because obviously it's a European podcast. Indeed. So that's the best sort of thing that we can sort of talk about in terms of what we have in terms of our expertise. So let's start with France.
Just send Renault Vitality.
I was going to say, there are a lot of French players, but to me, there are only 3 that stand out of the fucking Vitality squad. It's just a shame they can't compete under the Vitality name because that would be branding and sponsorship lost for those guys. But yeah, that kind of makes the most amount of sense for me. Even though there is all sorts of really good talents coming through the woodwork in France. Even in the rival series where Solari have had their own respective sort of. Have had their have had their own fucking success story. That's what I'm trying to say. There could be a world in which, assuming the bracket goes horribly for Vitality, Solari could be the French team that makes it through. In that case, let's just play a bit of fantasy. Where do we think they'll be able to place in the Interworld Open?
France. Honestly, as high as they possibly can, knowing just how many quality players are coming in from France right now, they're going to be top 4. Obviously, I'm assuming US and will be in top 4 as well. But yeah, no lower than top 4 for France. They should be as high up there as possible, especially knowing the level of play that Renault Vitality is showing, despite their ups and downs. I mean, it's hard to deny that they're one of the strongest teams right now in the world.
I know that Bacon's also in chat, by the way. Hello, mate. Fuck you for not turning up on the show today. He also says the idea of having Reciprocity with extra instead of fruity. Not going to lie, that seems like a really dumb idea because Reciprocity are terrible lately. Unfortunately, they're not having a very good fucking time. And even though the extra pickup would probably boost them, I feel like I don't feel like it would even hold a candle to what the likes of Vitality could do, for example. Again, just to play sort of like a fantasy, because to be honest, it feels like to me that no matter what sort of wild sort of predictions we make, it feels like Vitality will end up being that French representative anyway.
Yeah, well, it's still up in the air. Whoever qualifies, it's just it's not like they can just pick a team. Actually, their team needs to qualify, and if the Farah and Chasset decide to bring in a third, that their combination, I don't know, will it be whether it's going to be Casio extra or someone from the rival series? Just I don't know, bring darn. His name is immediately escaping my mind, despite me just rattling on and on and on and on and on about him. Carignoni, there you have it, or really anyone else from the Solari. But it's still, it might just happen that the Renault Vitality, if they're gonna go with that squad, which I think is the only reasonable way to go about it, they might just not make it, and then who knows who's gonna go through. But there are plenty of, really, out of all of the countries right now that are will be getting their teams ready. France can basically put up like 4 squads. Yeah, and all of them are going to be threatening.
I was going to say, like, any of the French squads that don't make it in as the official France representatives, I hope they also get a shout at potentially going through the secondary EU qualifier, because, not being funny, but you could easily see, like, 2 of those slots filled by French teams. I could see a way in for a lot of those squads. It would be a tough little affair, but you consider having to break up all the other teams that are internationally based, and it's like, well, actually, the French scene staying relatively within their own little confines means that there's a nice opportunity for a lot of those French players. But to me, it feels like that's the big powerhouse sort of like country at the moment for Intel World Open. A country that we could struggle actually to sort of like pin down might be Germany, to be honest. These guys, they've had some very like respectable and legendary players in the past, but right now the only really significant one I can think of off the top of my head probably is going to be like Tox from the rival series from the RCD squad. Maybe Godsmiller as well from Singularity, but it's like those two plus Freaky maybe. I think that might be the dream team sort of squad. It's a lot harder to pick a French team compared to to pick a German team compared to a French team.
Yeah, it's not looking as easy. There's no German team that's playing right now. You can go for Team Vertex, but Team Vertex have been struggling in rival series. I'd say Freaky would be the top pick for me, and then Chox actually is a solid choice for being the second, and then the third. Sort of up in the air. You really don't want to pick Tigre. You don't want to pick Godsmilla. They're having god awful seasons right now.
Yeah, that's the reason why I was a bit speculative. I mean, Freaky and Tox seem like the most the most obvious ones based off of how well they're doing within their respective rosters. But as you say, AS Monaco currently not having a great fucking season. Singularity, I think Scott Miller may be one of the missing elements for that side. And it's like, well, who else do you have to pick from the German scene to become German representatives? And
again, a lot of it comes down to who they even want to play with, because
yeah.
It is not as easy as just let's point a finger at them and go for it. Actually, who is Calix currently playing with? I think it was last time I saw him. I still think he's playing with Ocelon, but he can be possibly. Oh, they were playing with the boys. A lot of Burrito
he was
B
playing
and Calix,
with a lot on Burrito B.
We all know how that went. That's where Servette Geneva Esports appeared from.
Yep, exactly. I think they'll try. I think that those guys will also, the Servette Geneva side will try their hand at the European qualifier. No Swiss national sides, but there is definitely going to be a UK national side, which will fucking, oh my god, I could throw like a million names at this fucking, at this fucking country, and we could come out with some mad combinations of players. Just to pick a couple out, just some honorable mentions. You've got the likes of Devo, who's had a resurgence. Speed, obviously. We've got Scrub Killer in the mix. Relating Wave is having a decent time. Flame, obviously, from the Veloce squad. To dip into the regular sort of like English and British sort of region, you've got like a lot of players from like the Belong Arena Clash who've also shown some promise. The likes of there was a player on a fucking Stratford Spartans, so I'm trying to think of, I can't remember the name of it, what his name was, but like Bacon like ranted and raved about him, and he like pulled off one of the most ridiculous fucking starts there. And no, it's not Tris Taggers. I can't fucking remember who it was. But like the bottom line is that there is so many. Boy School Q, that's it. Boy School Q got it out from Digital Bacon, but that's another one. Crisis as well. Bluey as well, from the FC Barcelona camp. The former FC Barcelona camp, I should say. I keep forgetting that he's off that team. Yeah. Now Triple Trouble, yeah. Oh, and as well as that, you've got fucking Tadpole as well, like the fucking, you could just go on with all the players who could potentially represent the UK, even though all of them might not be amazing. Like, let's be real here, like there are a lot of combinations you can think of for the UK.
Yeah, well, I think the top one that you've named, Speed, Scrub Killer, and then maybe throw Devo in the mix. A Speed and Scrub Killer already playing together with in Mousesports, and then whoever their pay is going to be. I don't think they're going to go for Bluey if they will be choosing something. Bluey has a history of teams are being built around him, but I'm not sure that everyone would want to play with Bluey. That's my personal opinion of how things really have been going around the scene. If just gonna throw perhaps yet one more name into the hat, Noli or Nolistic from Team Singularity.
Noli, yeah.
I mean, right now, again, Team Singularity is having not the best season, but Noli has been floating pretty solidly.
I mean, again, I can't, there's so many fucking UK players. Like, there's so many fucking UK players in Rocket League. Like, I don't know if you could come up with a solid, defined sort of squad. And obviously, these are all like probably not your most defined sort of teams in the world to compete in the Intel World Open. Like, we could go on possibly for hours theorizing different sort of combinations because that's how many fucking, you know, combinations there could be. But that doesn't take into account all the various issues like you mentioned of who wants to play with who would be comfortable with who. Like, we can play God all fucking night, but we'll never really sort of like be able to come up with like the definitive teams. So we'll have to wait and see how the qualifiers shape up and see who the best, most promising squads could be. Obviously, we'll bring you all that information when those qualifiers come a little bit closer to the time. But for now, thank you very much for your question, Velixo. We really appreciate it. And thank you, of course, for your support on the podcast thus far. As well as that, a second question coming in from MattBlue. Who do you think would benefit the most from getting an experienced winning coach, i.e. Gregan, on board right now? I'm going to limit this to RLCS and RLRS teams because, you know, theoretically any team could be in with a chance, especially in that bubble scene where it's like, you know, I feel like a lot of different squads could benefit from just having a little bit of a guiding hand. And Jam, who do you say? I want to ask you first.
I'm going to give perhaps three options. Team Reciprocity, and I think we're going to dive in later regarding why. And most importantly, right now, even during the online season, they're not having a good time. So something needs to change. Obviously, they have Yumi as their coach right now, but something doesn't seem to be working. Don't want to blame Yumi for that specifically, perhaps some internal struggles that they're currently having. But something is off, and they need help immediately. My second option would be Team Solo Mid, just because something really needs to change over there. It is. Sorry,
a coach is not saving that fucking team. It's well beyond redemption.
Again, you might be absolutely right, but someone you just need. If the coach cannot save it, someone needs to just come in and sort of slap some people on the face, perhaps, or just say, "Okay, this is how we're gonna do it." Otherwise,
so I just got this image of just like Gregan walking in and slapping Notorious off the face, just like.
Exactly. And
we didn't fucking scream for you in London for you to straight up just shit the bed in season 9.
See, you get my point. But slightly, knowing that pretty much every single team in the RLCS currently has a coach. I do believe even for Renault Vitality, Mount is currently both their sub and their coach. I'm thinking We Dem Girls. Because I'm not sure whether they have a coach right now, but I feel like with Gregan's guiding hand, they might be able to really get the maximum out of everyone, including Greasy, who perhaps has not been really I can draw parallels with a lot, who, despite his attempt at getting back into Rival Series or just any top 2-tier tournaments in general, leagues in general, failed miserably. And I feel like the Greasy Meister is also not having an upswing. I think he plateaued and now slowly going down. I feel like with a coach, perhaps We Dem Girls can really squeeze the last bits out of Greasy Meister, make sure that Ixon and Breezy can also get in and just really structurize that team to make sure that We Dem Girls goes for from the potentials at the very start of the season to actual winners at the end of it.
Yeah, for me, I'm going to give two teams from the Championship Series who I think need it and two teams from the Rival Series who I think they need that, because I've mostly got sort of like the same sort of opinions of you. I think Reciprocity needs some, like, you know, some new coaching. And that the exclusive reason is because, again, no offense to Yummy, but like there's no roster move that I can think of for these players that could potentially make them better. Like, you know, I don't want to upset that level of chemistry that they have. But as you mentioned, you know, it's been fucking terrible for them, especially this past gone week, which we'll get into more detail in the tournament roundup. The other team I'm going to say is Mousesports, for very similar reasons, actually, to Reciprocity. Because like these are a bunch of players that you could take a look at and be like, fucking hell, these guys will win a world championship easy. And then they've been whiffing some of the more common series is, and as Bacon alluded to a couple of weeks ago, playing some very weird sort of like strats and tactics in these in their league play games. Mousesports to me feel like they need some cohesion to get the consistency back up, because they've kind of been falling inconsistent quite a lot over the last couple of weeks. Those are my sort of two picks for the for championship series. For rival series, yeah, I agree. We them girls probably do need a coach, because again, I take a look at these names and I think, fucking hell, this is an awesome roster, and they're currently sitting only 2 away from relegation in rival series. The other team I'm going to say is actually Servette Geneva, because fucking hell, this side have looked probably if I had to pick a team to sort of like be the RLRS TSM, it probably would be Servette Geneva, just because of how how well they've gone with that. And I do know that they've got like a coach in this side, but I'm not being funny. I don't know who DNA is, and his history in Rocket League is like not really prevalent per se. I don't know what he brings to the table. I've heard things about what he brings to the table, and if it's true, I don't think it's good. And Servette, they're one of the strongest teams in Switzerland. But if that's what Switzerland are bringing to the table, then fucking, we have some problems. And coming from personal experience, having watched Swiss teams and seen their potential and been a bit of a fan of them, but more because of what I see in their potential, like this is not representative of what I think the region could produce.
Well, for a long time, Servette were sort of boiling in the Swiss region, and we will know that in that region, Servette are the strongest teams. If memory serves me right, they won 3 out of 3 TCS esports leagues. Different rosters. At some point, Hello played for Servette Geneva, but still, in their region, they're dominating. Not necessarily that translates into something like Rival Series. It's completely different level, and it's great that they even made it here, and in some ways they made it through the failings of the boys, as that team just couldn't live up to their potential. But right now, no question about it, they're having some serious struggles, and some real thinking is needed before they even if they don't manage to salvage this season, if they end up dropping out, which right now they're looking like they're going to do, together with Baguette Squad and Team Verdicts. God knows with who the fourth team are going to be, who's going to get out. But right now it seems like the bottom 3 might already be sort of locked out based on their performances. But even if they don't manage to get anything done, they need to somehow cut their losses. They need to have a long think about how they're going to go next, because something's clearly not working. And we've heard about some things happening inside the team that are not exactly healthy for a prospering team going forward.
Yeah, and honorable mention maybe might go to RCD Espanyol.
Why though?
The reason why I say this is because and again, it's an honorable mention exclusively because I don't think they need a coach like Gregan. But if they wanted to bring in someone like him to catapult them to the next level, then I feel like that would be a really fucking cool thing. Because RCD right now, they're looking like a team that could top rival series. I think that they could potentially have the elements to be a team that goes pretty far in the championship series. And I think that adding someone like a top tier coach might be able to bring out those elements and create a squad that could potentially go that far. Again, honorable mention, because right now I don't think they need it. That's certainly an addition for later down the road, but just a little bit of food for thought, like a squad that is on the precipice of making it through to the championship series, and what the best thing that they could do is to make a run in the next season. You know what I mean?
It is something that they might want to consider, but personally it feels like no need to change anything right now. They're having great success with Arliobi, who's their current coach. He hasn't only joined at the start of the year, but right now they're reaping the best rewards they can possibly have. I'm currently trying to figure out getting back. Oh no, Mystic has joined Veloce in October of last year, so he has been there for, let me quickly see, has been there for a previous season as far as I remember, for Veloce. And I'm looking at Veloce because it is the same story that you sort of painted for RCD Español right now. Veloce absolutely killed it in their rival series season, then went on to punching faces and, well, kicking butts and taking names in the RLCS as well. And it seems like that's your sort of how you draw the potential for RCD Español as well. And I feel like with the way that they're right now playing, maybe if their owners decided, hey, we need to really jump up a level. But right now, I feel like everything's going well for them. They have a coach that speaks their language, with the exception of Talks, who is German, but everyone else in the team is Spanish. The coach is Spanish. I feel like there's a real cohesion that I don't think they need to fix just yet. He can come in and be perhaps like a consultant, Gregan, but right now, I feel like there are teams that are in need of a coach much stronger than the RCD Español need right now.
Yeah, okay. All right. I'll accept that. But honorable mention still goes to those guys.
Of course.
Any other teams that you think might benefit, or is that just kind of like going to be the listing wrapped up right there?
I think that's pretty much it. If again, for RLCS, I don't think anyone really still warrants mention. For a rival series, again, just a quick jump. I quickly see. I'm really far off the current season. I mean, not really. Yes, obviously we have struggling teams, but I don't think Gregan would go. Like you could say, oh, Baguette Squad really need Gregan, because right now, after staying in rival series, they're currently just falling off the face of the earth. I think it's too late for Gregan coming in over there. For Servette, perhaps even bigger problems than Gregan, but a solid choice. Not Team Vertex. I feel like is there currently an English team, like a strongly English team? That's Sweden Girls with 2 players from England. Every other team has 1 at most. Oh, okay. Triple Trouble has Tadpole and Bluey, but they have Rams, and I don't think Triple Trouble will trade Rams for anything right now. So yeah, I think that's it, really.
Okay, then. Okay, well, there you go. That's those are our picks for who would benefit the most from an experienced coach among the likes of Gregan, for example. So there you go. Thanks for your question, Matt. And again, thanks for your question, Velixo, from earlier on. And of course, if you want to ask a question, get featured on the show and potentially contribute to some of the content, then of course, ! Discord in the Twitch chat, and it's in the show notes and video descriptions of every single episode of the podcast. Click that link and join us, where you can also take part in our discussions and our RLCS and RLRS prediction games. We have not got the results for this week. Unfortunately, Dex's internet is out, so he's unable to bring us the results of who's currently sitting to the top. He's working on that, so if you are currently playing the prediction game and you're waiting to see who's still sitting on top, then you can find out in a couple days' time. For now, though, we're going to kind of get left in the dark on that front, so I have no idea whether or not I've hit last place yet. Anyways, speaking of last place, we have to talk about our placings for each of the teams in the Championship and Rival Series tournaments. We'll start with the Rival Series. This week we had 7 matches across the A and B streams. Again, you were casting some of the B stream jams, so you've got a little bit of experience with some of these teams. So I'm going to take a little bit of a chance to query you on a certain couple of bits and pieces as we go. So obviously the results to start things off on round 3, the A stream matches went as follows: BDS beating out Notorious Legion 3-1, RJM destroying Servette Geneva at 3-0. Baguette Squad lost out to Vertex in a 3-2 fashion. Triple Trouble managed the loss to Solari all the same in a 3-2 fashion. That one was actually a match point for the Triple Trouble side at 2-1 before they actually ended up losing the next couple of games. And over on the B stream, RJM took a series above at Vertex at 3-1. Solari went real close to Notorious Legion, but shut down the reverse sweep to take a 3-2, excuse me. But the 3-0 of that night went into the favor of Triple Trouble, as they once again destroyed Servette Geneva by a total of 14 goals to 3, Jam. And I think that's where I want to start. Actually, sorry, before we get there, the point standings at the end of the week, RCD Español currently at the top with 3 3-0, still on their board. RJM trailing behind with a loss to their name, but still 3 wins on the board. 3-2 for Solari, 2-1 in series for BDS, 2-1 in series for Weedem Girls, a +2 game difference that gives BDS the edge above Weedem Girls. And in the bottom 4, Triple Trouble behind that at 2-2, and then in the bottom 4, we've got Notorious Legion, Vertex, Servette Geneva, and Baguette Squad, who have yet to get a series on the board. Now, I want to talk about Servette Geneva. I had so much faith in these guys. I love them. They're all good mates. But fucking hell, when I see a terrible performance, I have to call it out. And this was probably one of the biggest disaster weeks that I've ever seen for this team. Like, it was actually ridiculous. Like I said, 14 goals to 3. 14 goals to 3 in fucking against Triple Trouble, and I think that the scores weren't even that great for RJM. Yeah, actually, 11 goals to 1 against RJM. Like, this is fucking embarrassing, utterly fucking embarrassing, and I don't know if even these players have, like, stock in themselves, to be honest. Like, one thing I was mentioning before we started the show is that me and Zafir are at the same event over on the weekend. We were at Red Bull Universe, which, for those of you who don't know, is sort of like a set of show matches for the Red Bull guys. They had Zafir as one of the Rocket League sort of like representatives, even though they weren't even taking what's it called. They weren't even taking Rocket League as a game. It was just sort of like a show match. And despite that, they completely... I could see them having such a really bad fucking sort of team morale behind them, Jam. And we'll come onto the thing in chat in a minute, by the way. Don't worry. We'll address that in a moment's time, because it's very appropriate considering what we're talking about Servette Geneva. But right now in the rival series, and just based off what I've seen from them in person, like, they do not have a great team morale set right now.
Yeah. I think just like with every single result that we currently have, despite us almost hitting the middle point of the season, you still need to look at sort of each match individually and see why there was loss. So it would just take Servette Geneva's losses to Weedem Girls and Triple Trouble. I mean, completely understandable. Nobody at the start of those series were expecting Servette Geneva to do anything. It's Weedem Girls, it's Triple Trouble, 2 teams that people are considering to be finishing in top 3. Definitely challenging for the qualification. But then you come to RGM, and that's Resident Justice and Mike Boy. Yeah, I don't remember series, specifically the start of the series, specifically first 60 seconds of the first game of a series that went so horribly for one of the teams. If we're specifically talking about RLCS or RLCS. When you get 5 goals scored against you in 60 seconds, when analysts cannot stop, still talking about the previous goals, and RGM already have scored 2 in that time when the analysis of the previous goal is happening, something is awfully wrong. And the word on the street is right now, horrible issues for Servette Geneva when it comes to positioning, when it comes to lack of game plan in general. And it seems like nobody's there to sort of tell them, okay, this is not working. This is really not working. Okay, we need to really throw everything out. Stop. Think. Because that was just horrifying. And the Stacks, I do believe that was Stacks and Supersonic who were casting that game, and they could not believe it either. That was something crazy. But they won against Baguette Squad, so that counts for something. Then again, Baguette Squad are currently the punching bag of the whole rival series. So still, it's better to end the season with a 1-8 rather than 0-9. So
doesn't help you in terms of the grand scale of things, though, is it? Like, Servette Geneva's next big leap is to try and go international. They've been unable to even do that. And I got to call them out here, Like, I was watching that game 3. I didn't get a chance to watch the whole series, but I watched that game 3 between Servette and Triple Trouble. I was keeping my eyes on the RJM series where they lost 5 goals in a single fucking minute. And I'm not being funny, but... like, right now, the problems for me in this squad are Mirror and Yagi. Mirror and Yagi are always the guys who are double committing. Mirror and Yagi are always the guys who are making the positional mistakes. And, you know, that's not to say that Servette's doing anything amazing. Like, he's just playing the way that he should do, you know. But the problem is that, you know, the problem children are there in the core main duo of this squad. And, you know, I've heard things about the way that they're playing right now, and it feels like the issues stem from sort of like, I'm not overconfident. I don't know if that's the right word for it, but I'm kind of sort of leaning towards that sort of that definition, in the sense that they're not really coming into these prepared, and they're not really coming into these with an idea of how the hell they're gonna play during this one. And again, the problems with the rotations and the problems with the defensive commitments coming in from those two players have really fucked them up, and have led to some of these ridiculous scorelines that we've seen between RJM and Servette, between RJM and Triple Trouble matches. That being said, though, Jam, and we're not going to get into too much detail on this, because obviously this is something to say for next week when we get the chance to watch the VODs back. I haven't been keeping my eyes on the TEI qualifiers, but as was mentioned in chat just a moment ago, Servette Geneva just beat Solari and then beat BDS to make it into the main tournament for the European Invitational. Now, while I like to take stock in certain victories, I'm not sure how much of this was a fluff and how much of this was just fucking Servette Geneva having one of the rare moments where they actually look good. Because, you know, again, I feel like this team has the potential to do stuff internationally, but their performance in the rival series has not proven that. Whether or not this performance proves it, I'm still going to keep my my opinions reserved until I see, you know, some actual, like, legitimate results.
It's hard to immediately, I mean, the hardcore fans will immediately get excited, but I don't think anyone should put the Servette Geneva posters and t-shirts back on the wall. Whatever the problems are, I don't think they're solvable by like 2 days of just talking with their coach or Zafir really gathering the team together. We haven't seen the games. We don't know who really, whether it's Servette Geneva Esports suddenly found their like fifth gear, or whether it's the other teams are having an absolutely horrible day. But this is theoretically, this is not where it counts. Right now, where it counts for them the most is rival series, and they're not showing the results that they need to. If this continues, if they're all of a sudden completely break the narrative and start going up, all the more power to them. I have absolutely nothing against Servette Geneva Esports, just like UJ and just like Bacon. I do have some I don't know, moral investment in the Swiss scene, so I'm only happy to see them play better and realize their fullest potential. But right now it is great that they're getting those wins, but let's see what happens afterwards. Right now, it seems like they've already qualified for the event, and again, props to them, but I'm not celebrating just yet. I want to see an effort and results on a longer scale, on a much bigger scale than just this one tournament.
Yeah, again, you know, like it's a double elimination bracket, which is cool and all, but at the end of the day, the big thing is going to be the league, so they need to post those results, and if they keep posting results like this, then I'm going to be real fucking concerned. So yeah, again, I'm going to have to give shit to Servette for this one, because I believe in those guys, and I think that those talents are really fucking great, but the elements are not coming together right now. The consistency certainly isn't there. You know, I don't believe that a Mirroring, for example, has really found, you know, his stride in consistent fashion. You know, he's found some good days and some good performances, which I think could be RLCS level, but he needs to find them a few more if he wanted to see Servette Geneva to go any further here in the rival series. On the contrary, though, their opponents this week were Triple Trouble. Obviously, they had the easy sort of a game of the weekend for them, but they did lose 3-2 to Solari. Now, this is an interesting one because they had match point, but they let it go to 2 more games after the game 3 that Solari actually won that series overall. And Triple Trouble in general have struggled to find their footing so far here in rival series. Like, they've gotten the easy victories against the likes of Vertex and Servette Geneva, but against RCD, they struggled against them. They struggled against Solari as well. They got some close series, but they managed to lose those series overall. And again, this is one of those teams who I actually had high hopes for to probably go to potentially even the auto promotion spot if we them girls shit the bed, which is exactly what they're doing right now. But not the same could be said for TT. They're having a really hard time here.
Well, just like with us looking at Servette Geneva, I feel like if you just take their matches, again, RCD Espanyol currently having the best time of their life, really best form that they've ever been in, and just looking at their matches, I don't think our RCD Espanyol really have played some super weak teams. They've played against Triple Trouble, they played against Solari, they played against Weedham Girls. That's a 3-0. They still have 6 matches to go, but that's going to be against Vertex, against the Notorious Legion, later on BDS, RGM, and then a couple of throwaways, I feel like, against Servette Geneva and Baguette Squad. Really, RCD Espanyol can qualify themselves for RLCS with 2 games to spare with the way they have been playing. But if we take a look against of Triple Trouble versus Solari, I think that whole series was won after Kerry and Yoni, after the 3rd game, where the Triple Trouble got their match point. Kerry and Yoni went and drank a little bit of that Michael Jackson secret stuff from Space Jam and went on a complete rip and tear. 3 goals in that 4th game. Every single goal better than the other. I believe added another one in the 5th game. I felt that was incredibly close series throughout, but it was specifically the individual effort of Kerry and Yoni has been hitting goals, not shitting goals.
I mean, shitting goals could work pretty well.
I mean,
you know?
I mean, those were holy shit goals. But the way that he has been playing, that series was one off Carinioni and, of course, the help of the rest of the Solari, because, again, they've been fighting tooth and nail throughout the whole series. At some point, Demolitions came out, and Solari matched Triple Trouble in those Demolitions. So that was just Rocket League, I feel like. I can't blame a Triple Trouble for not winning that one, because they met their match, plus one of the opposing players just exploded on the field, and you can never account to that.
Yeah, I mean, the other side of this coin, obviously, is the fact that Solari have been really, really good in the last couple of weeks. I came into this one with an open mind, thinking to myself, hey, Block are pretty good. We'll see how well they'll do. And then ever since then, they've just, taken win after win after win. They've lost 2 games, admittedly. So, there's always that two losses in round 2 sort of result. But wins against Triple Trouble, that's pretty legit. A close win against Notorious Legion, who also had a good start in week 2, and obviously the win against Vertex, who that is Vertex in fairness, but that's a bit of a resurgence sort of team. Like, you're looking at a squad like Solari and thinking, actually, the potential here is a lot higher than what I think we should have, what I think most of us expected. Again, they are sort of sitting in the top 4 by the skin of their teeth right now. Also, the top 3, excuse me, by the skin of their teeth right now. And I think a couple more losses could potentially throw things down the drain for them. But how much of these losses to some of these bigger teams is it down to just Solari being really incredible French players? I mentioned obviously that they could potentially be candidates for the French sort of representation in the Interworld Open, but what about their campaign in the rival series?
That's actually not a too far-fetched proposition to them being one of the contenders for those top 4 teams that you can make out of the French players. Hell, they are just a fully French team. And really, even when they came into the season as block, you already felt like, hey, these 3 players are doing something great. Right now, I feel like they're in a great position to solidify their position in Rival Series. Their next 2 games are going to be against Servette Geneva Esports and Baguette Squad. Again, based on how Servette Geneva were playing and how Baguette Squad are currently playing, feels to me, I mean, if I had to predict, 2 easy wins for Solari. The only problem is Solari, in one of the games on the B stream versus Notorious Legion Esport, that was something really weird. First game, exactly what I expected from him, 5-1. Second game, 1-0, a much closer effort. But then, for whatever reason, Solari went in and completely stopped playing in the offense in the 3rd and the 4th game. And only barely, with scoring a goal 7 seconds before the end of the 5th game that was a 0-0, they managed to get that win. That was not after they played Triple Trouble, and again, they were keeping up with the pace with the Triple Trouble throughout that series. I was not expecting for them to go to the Game 5 against Notorious Legion Esports, who I felt like were playing much slower, perhaps is not explosive and inventive. So everything can still go topsy-turvy, but I feel like at the end of coming into the matches against RGM and Widom Girls, that's going to be the doubleheader for, well, sort of a doubleheader for Solari. And actually their last games of the season. They're not participating during the 7th week. I feel like Solari are going to come into that 6th week, the last week, with a 5-2 record and a good chance to fight for those, maybe not for automatic qualifier, but definitely for 2nd or 3rd spot for the promotion playoffs.
Yeah, it could well be the case. I mean, you know, Solari, again, you know, they've been having some very good series and having some very bad series, but they've always, with the exception of the Vertex series, they've always been within a single game difference. So, like, I feel like they are contesting at the top end of the rival series. I think the problem for them, obviously, going forward is whether or not they'll be able to contest at the bottom end of the championship series. But obviously, Solari, that's a question for them to answer another day. For now, though, they're having a really, really good time, I think, all things considered. You know, like, these weren't players that I personally consider to be the best of the best in rival series. But they're having a really good time right now, training in 3rd. Not the most solid of 3rd place positions, but a little lead to extend on, especially since next week they've got Servette Geneva, and, you know, Servette are not great. So I think the Solari have a lot of promise that they can fulfill over the course of the next few weeks. Another team that has a lot of promise, unable to fulfill that thus far, is actually Notorious Legion. Now, admittedly, in comparison to the rest of the table, Notorious Legion haven't played as many series as some of the teams right now sitting at the top, but still 1-2, and therefore in 7th place, with this week also being a doubleheader for them. They did not get either of their series. They lost to BDS at 3-1, and then they lost to Solari again 3-2. So considering how well they did against RJM, considering that RJM were one of our sort of, like, you know, picks to watch this season, Notorious Legion haven't lived up to the hype in week 3 at least.
I feel like a lot of people have given Notorious Legion a lot of credit after that win against RGM, and you can sort of understand why that is. But they've struggled against Baguette Squad in the 1st week. That series went to 5 games. Pretty much every single, well, not every single game, but a couple of these games were really close affairs. And knowing that Notorious Legion haven't played enough games sort of still keeps a little bit of a veil of mystery around them. Just taking the squad, Mitan and Tas, players from Team Echo Zulu from the previous rival series season. We all know how Team Echo Zulu season went then. It was nothing impressive. The slowness really on the field, they were mostly a defensive team, but you can't possibly play extra defensively or not really have any plans in the attack and still win things. And now 2/3 of that team is coming into the season. Cash is a great pickup. I feel every single time Notorious Legion Esports plays, we pinpoint Cash as being one of the top players and really someone to watch. I don't think it's still enough. So I feel like the problem with Notorious Legion is that, again, I'm mostly speaking for myself, but I feel like other folks are also, they just overestimated Notorious Legion's level after that victory against RGM. And coming into the 3rd week, they were just, we didn't, those expectations were just dashed a little bit. Again, against Solari, they had great games. Notorious Legion pressured Solari off the field. But again, after Solari's game against Triple Trouble, that was surprising that Solari so easily gave in. For Notorious Legion Esports, they might be that last team who will be knocked out again with Team Vertex, Servette Geneva, and Baguette Squad right now not having bad seasons. But wouldn't be surprised if Notorious Legion actually stays in the league. They're still, I believe, the team that has played. Actually, they're now on par with BDS and Widom Girls with games played. It's just that have we really expected that much from Notorious Legion Esport at the start of the season? Yes, they got through the qualifiers, but I'm not sure if Jay, you and Bacon have done any pre-season rankings. But if you did, where did you rank Notorious Legion Esport?
I think we ranked them about middle of the table. we sort of like ranked them initially at the middle of the table, and then Bacon was sort of like, actually, if they don't do shit in week one, then they're not going to do shit in the entire season. So I think we kind of like may have sort of like skewed our estimations in how this team may perform. And I just kind of wanted to ask you in general, do you think that maybe there's people out there that may have skewed their impressions in Notorious Legion based off that week one result, or do you still think that you think so? You definitely think so?
That's my whole point, really, is the fact that first game that we saw from Notorious Legion Esport was a solid 3-0 against RGM. And while RGM also, well, right now RGM is doing pretty well, although their matches right now are mostly against the bottom of their wins. Their 3 wins are against Baguette Squad, against Servette Geneva Esports, and against Team Vertex. Their only loss right now is against Notorious Legion Esports. So even RGM is right now sort of overinflated. They haven't played the strongest team just yet. Yeah. But again, back to your point, seems like Notorious Legion's first game, really 3-0. Okay, top of the board. Let's send them up there. But a little bit premature, it seems.
Premature in the early part of things for Notorious Legion, but they have got many opportunities. Again, it's only week 3. Week 4 is coming up on Friday and Saturday as usual. So we'll take a look at some of the matches that we have next week and make our predictions. For the sake of the prediction game, I'm going to be a semi big dick, and I'm going to say actually, hey, your predictions stand in for Bacon's predictions this week. So you officially get to be Digital Bacon. You get to contribute to his prediction game table. Of course, for those of you who don't know, our predictions that we make on the show, they're all counted towards the prediction game table. So again, you can compete against us by joining the Discord and going to the pick and prediction channel and submitting your picks for each and every week of the Rival Series and Championship Series. So we've got We Dem Girls versus Notorious Legion in the first of the round matches. BDS taking on BGS. RCD against Vertex and Solari versus Servette Geneva. And then the second stream has BDS versus Servette Geneva, Baguette Squad versus Notorious Legion, and RCD versus RJM. So first things, give me your highlight match of the week.
Quickly going through it. I just saw it just a moment ago, and then I completely lost it. We Dem Girls versus Notorious Legion Esports will be great. Again, just continuing that conversation that Notorious Legion perhaps been overhyped, but we still haven't seen enough of them to really gauge their level. If they're still going to be the middle of the league team, still interesting to see how they deal against We Dem Girls, who really also have not been doing that well. Again, their only loss is against RCD Espanyol, who are just crazy right now. So it's either We Dem Girls versus Notorious Legion Esport, or it's going to be RCD Espanyol versus RGM, the very last matchup on the B stream, because that's going to actually show... I feel like the RGM has the potential to throw a spanner in the works of RCD Espanyol. If not win that game, then I have a suspicion that might go to game 5 with RCD Espanyol getting it in the end. I also can be completely wrong, but this is my feeling about the 2 games: the very first game of the week and the very last one.
Yeah, I was kind of going to go on honorable mention to RCD versus RGM. I kind of have to agree with you on the We Dem Girls Notorious Legion match. Like, to me, it feels like it holds a lot more weight based on the fact that obviously both teams have had something to prove. And for Notorious Legion, they've sort of shown it that they can do what they can do, but We Dem Girls haven't quite shown that they can do what they can do. So it's a case of both teams having a lot riding on that particular game. So yeah, that's my highlight match for the week. But let's go through predictions from top to bottom. Tell me who you think is going to win and by what scoreline?
All right, We Dem Girls versus Notorious Legion 3-1 to We Dem Girls. BDS versus Baguette Squad 3-0 to BDS. RCD Espanyol, I feel like Vertex might sneak one win against them, so 3-1 in favor of RCD Espanyol. Something about Vertex, they either explode or implode against big teams, and sometimes both of the teams go ham in that matchup. No defense, nothing. It's Vertex who had those records against Block, now Solari, and later on against Triple Trouble with 26 goals in the series and 25 goals in the series. That's a 4-game series, which is crazy. So wouldn't be surprised if something like that happens yet again against RCD Espanyol. Solari versus Servette Geneva. After what Solari did last week, I have my doubts about that. Still feel like Solari is going to win 3, but 3-1. I'll give a little bit of
Really?
hope to Servette Geneva. Like one game. That's going to be that. Well, Servette Geneva can get it. Based off the results that just came in, because Servette Geneva actually won against Solari 3-1 in the qualifier for the Invitational. So they definitely can do it, but feels like both Solari needs to adjust. Because what they did against Notorious Legion Esports was not up to par, really, to their level, I feel like. And where it counts the most, I feel like the Solari will step up. So 3-1 in favor of Solari against Servette Geneva Esports. BDS versus Servette Geneva Esports. I'm going to give it a 3-1 as well. To BDS, because still... Well, great that Servette Geneva are getting those wins in the qualifier. I am not a complete another believer just yet. Would hope for them to do well, but not yet. Baguette Squad versus Notorious Legion Esports. I feel like the Baguette Squad will get... Will they even get anything? 1 game to Baguette Squad, but 3 games to Notorious Legion Esport. A lot of 3-1s, really. And RCD Espanyol, RGM, I'm going to say 3-2 in favor of RCD Espanyol, because... this could be a really close matchup if RGM really sort of step up. They have that untapped potential, I feel like, that's still sitting there, and they can really shoot against the strongest team. So 3-2 for RCD Espanyol against a matchup for RGM.
That'll be a close one, certainly. For my predictions, I'm going to go 3-2 to We Dem Girls, 3-0 for BDS. I've got 3-0 for RCD against Vertex. And I want to believe in Servette, but I feel like that they've had their one flash in the pan, so I'm going to go 3-0 for Solari on this one. I'll go 3-1 maybe for BDS against Servette Geneva in the next match, and I'm going to go Notorious Legion to go 3-1 above Baguette Squad in the penultimate match. And for the RJMRC Espanyol series, I'm going to agree on the 3-2 to the favour of RCD Espanyol. So those are our predictions, and those are our highlight matches for next week of the Rival Series. Again, join that Discord if you think that we're wrong and you can prove us wrong, then that prediction game is all well and dandy. And also the prediction game for the Championship Series. So... 6 results to talk about here, Jam, and I've got quite a lot to say because I actually watched the entire broadcast for this one for once. And I know the last couple of weeks have been me sort of saying, "Hey, I've been busy," but this week I actually did manage to catch every single one of the Championship Series results. So I'm going to talk in detail about quite a lot of this. We'll start with the results again. Veloce took on Singularity to open things up. They had a 3-0 series above them. Runner Vitality beat out AS Monaco in 3-1. Veloce beat out Endpoint at 3-1, and FCB managed to win above Reciprocity at 3-1. Then TSM somehow slogged their way against ASM to a 3-2 victory in a game 5 that really shouldn't have taken place. And then Dignitas beat out Mousesports in a reverse sweep at 3-2, leaving your standings as Dignitas still undefeated, 4-0 top of the table. Runner Vitality at 4-1 alongside Veloce tying up the game difference also at 4-1. FC Barcelona rounds up the top 4 at 3-1, and Reciprocity and Mousesports are tied for 5th and 6th at 2-2. Endpoint just about staying in the auto safety sort of slot, but tied up with TSM at 1-3 and -4 on game difference. I think that it's just a case of a couple of different games and a couple of different series that went a bit differently to give TSM in the relegation zone. Singularity down at 1-4 below that, and AS Monaco completely swept out thus far at 0-5, Jam. So, first team I want to talk about is Singularity. And the reason for this is because we saw a lot of potential from Singularity in round 2. In week 2, they played such a great style against Runner Vitality, forced so many mistakes from them, able to, put the ball in so many awkward positions and, force the series away from them in the end. A back and forth affair. I mean, they realized they couldn't take the fight in terms of skill and firepower, so they took the fight back in terms of, just smart play and slight tactics, and that's exactly what got them through. But ever since that series, we've seen none of that sort of like style of play. And this series against Veloce really highlighted that. They scored 1 goal against Veloce, and they were just fucking just not good whatsoever. We saw them get beat down, and Veloce had their way from the word go. Like the experience certainly trumps a Singularity out, which is exactly what you'd expect from a team that have been in the championship series for 2 seasons. And the problems that have presented themselves are all thanks to Singularity just not coming in with the same game plans that they did before.
Well, that's victory by Singularity versus Renault Vitality was something else, but then they couldn't just ride that high forever. And I feel like during the next week, Dignitas and Mouse adjusted appropriately, and that's why Singularity couldn't get a single series win. And even here against Veloce, I think it's slightly twofold. First of all, again, preparation and Singularity dropping down just a little bit. Those are close games. Again, that was 2-0, 3-1, and 1-0. It's not like Veloce completely ran away with it. But it's also Veloce. To me, it still feels like a lot of teams thinking, oh, Veloce. It's that those new kids on the block, those young whippersnappers. But maybe it's due to underestimation of Veloce's abilities that team continue on dropping to them. Granted, their results right now are a loss to Barcelona, a win against TSM, a win against Reciprocity, who, oh boy, not having the best of their times. Winning against Singularity and winning against Endpoint. And over there, like Endpoint and Singularity, teams that have, just now got to hear from the Rival series. So it's understandable that Veloce actually won against them. Whether it's really a full-on downfall for Singularity, it's hard to tell. But right now, their results are really not showing. I'm not sure if you agree with me, Jay, but it's feel like if you had to pinpoint one player on the side of Singularity, it's got to be Gutsmilla. And if one player is not pulling their weight on the team on this level, even in Rival Series, heck, even on the bubble tournament, if one of your players isn't doing well, then the whole team suffers. Right now, it feels like the Gutsmilla is just not doing anything. Not scoring, not setting up his teammates. He's just there, but that's definitely not helping.
And we did see sort of like him and the rest of the squad step up in game 3, and we saw signs of what they could do against Veloce, but by that point they were so scared in that series. They were so fucking terrified of doing anything, to the point where they were expecting challenges from Veloce that never came, and they got some weak touches on the balls as a result. They just looked like a squad that didn't deserve to be here, essentially. And it's like, well, at the moment, yeah, you kind of don't, if that's the way you're going to play against someone like Veloce. And, I feel like that there is a certain level of justification to saying it's being a little bit complacent to Veloce, considering that they've skated past every side. But let's be real here. Even though I don't think the win against Reciprocity was against the Reciprocity on form, and I don't think that the series against FC Barcelona should have been a win for them, and I also think that TSM are also pretty shit these days. Like, those are still wins against legit squads from Veloce, no matter what you think of the caveats around that scoreline. If you're Singularity, you shouldn't slouch against any of the championship series teams. And again, I just don't think they're doing the same sort of the same level of research and preparation that they should be doing to try and get these games under their board, because I feel like if they came in with the same style that they played against Renault Vitality, then they would have been able to win this outright easy. I think that should have been a not outright easy like a 3-0, but 3-1, 3-2. I think Singularity would have been able to have this series under their belt. But I feel like this is going to start to become a recurring problem. And even with TSM next week, I'm looking at Singularity like, if you lose against them, then you've really got no way out of this one.
That is game over for them. But we saw Team Solo mid. We're going to talk about it in just a moment. Their match against AS Monaco. That was not promising. That still didn't answer any questions.
We'll save that for a bit. I'll just say that I've got some very fun little times, but. Just to transition away from Veloce. I mean, they did have at least one legit victory this week, and I know that's going to come to a celebratory sound from all the Veloce fans out there who have heard us bash them week in and week out. Because I think that, honestly, the series against Endpoint was actually one of the more confident ones. I think it's also a series that highlights exactly why we do not believe Veloce. We do not believe Veloce can get all the wins all the time, because that first game you saw how Endpoint were playing, they fucking smashed it. They went 5-1 up. They looked incredible absolutely incredible. Like sort of the team that we thought might be able to do some damage when they first came in and took a game against Renault Vitality. Like this is showing the signs of the squad that we thought actually could do some decent work. And against Veloce, they had that game 1 go so well for them. It was in games 2 and 3 where they really lost the plot because Veloce put them on tilt. Veloce, in credit to them, managed to adjust appropriately and force Endpoint into a position where they were making some awkward double commits. The rotations were thrown off. The touches on balls were weak because they weren't able to get the setups. Like, it was actually a pretty good showing from Veloce.
So is there really a problem then if that's a really strong ability to have, to actually being able to readjust mid-series just after one loss, really pinpoint all the wrong things that you've been doing and saying, all right, we're going to go with this plan immediately and bam, it works. I feel like this is still nothing to be really scared of, as you might have painted it. It's not nice that you actually show your weaknesses like that initially, or you come into the game and your whole game plan completely gets disassembled. But I've known plenty of teams who cannot adjust, who come in with some rigid plan and refuse to change anything and just lose on 0-3. Veloce seemingly no better than that to actually adjust their play and adjust so successfully.
Yeah, again, I feel like the Veloce still have, a couple of things to iron out. Again, I think that game 1, for example, from against Endpoint, that was the one where all the issues really came to light. For Veloce, though, again, the ability to adjust against Endpoint is against Endpoint. Can they do the same thing against Mousesports and Dignitas and Renault Vitality in weeks 6, 7, and 8? That's where I feel like they'll really get tested. They've had a couple of decent series so far in the last couple of weeks. They've had that doubleheader week this week, so the majority of games are out of the way now. But when it comes to the level of competition, again, I think Reciprocity didn't come in on form. I think TSM is a free victory, and FC Barcelona in week 1 were within susceptible reach of getting reverse swept. So you also got to consider that as well when you take into account Veloce's sort of wins so far. So, the jury's still out on me for Veloce, but I mean, if this was a courtroom, they presented some decent evidence to the contrary of every point that we've made so far about them. So, again, credit to them and what they've been able to do. But, it would be worth going back to watch that first game in that series 1 or 2 more times to really get sort of like an idea as to where they stand against a really good team. But speaking of really good teams, FC Barcelona are another team that we've bashed to bits over the course of the showing of this show. Like we've talked a lot about how this squad's, like, you can't throw 3 strikers together and make it happen. It just doesn't work that way. FC Barcelona have changed a couple of elements out since that point, but they've always remained with the 3 striker setup. I thought in week 1 they were just going to meme the shit out of it, obviously because Flake's using the stupid Scarab and then the Gizmo. And obviously, the wins against Endpoint came in and Veloce nearly reverse swept them. They lost to Renault Vitality, which was expected. But this series this week actually showed signs of potential in team formation, which is something I really like. Jam, did you watch this one by a shout?
Yeah, and once again, I have noted that Flakes has come up with yet another car that he still hasn't used, and so that's all the Twitterverse is screaming at him. He's throwing the games and everything. But those are close games, and if we couple, at this, you would expect FCB to actually step up pretty strong, especially knowing that what Devo has been doing this week. But it still fits with what you're saying, Jay. They have figured out how at the very least, if that wasn't the game plan as they came into the series, at the very least they really found it during the game itself. Devo was impeccable. He is deservedly the MVP for the week. And knowing that his teammates, Ronick and Flakes, were in the attack, just setting up each other, seemingly has worked out well. So if this is the way Barcelona wants to go on forward, it seems to me like they're going to get the results.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I noticed with FCB and the way that they were playing out this series against Reciprocity, again, caveats apply because we're going to talk about Reciprocity in a minute. The one thing I really loved about this series is the way that Devo played. Now, we've always said that Devo is the weakest striking element on this side. but he had some ridiculous saves this time around. Like, if this is the reinvention of Devo, then I think this could be a big move, not only for FCB, but also for his career as a whole, because, like, if I was going to have to pick between two of the three strikers on FC Barcelona, it would be Ronicky and fucking Flakes. You know, Devo would not be the guy that sort of like, you know, it makes that cut for me. So to see him sort of transition into a bit more of a defensive role with some really good stats on the board. I don't know if you saw that game where he got 10 fucking saves against some ridiculous pressure posted up by Reciprocity. You're looking at that like, yo, these guys are legit. And then the counter-attacking force from Ronicky and Flakes was so well placed, because you saw Ronicky take a shot and then Flake spot a complacent player in the backline, just demo him out and just open up a free net, essentially. Like, that was a really smartly played sort of like strategy from FC Barcelona to utilize his Flake's hyper-aggressive sort of FU style and Ronicky's shooting prowess that gets almost every single shot on target, you know?
Yeah, this really has been showing, and I mean, all credit to them. It works. And knowing that Devo has not been really successful in starting his attack, if I just to take a look at the players on the side of Barcelona, it's Flakes and Ronicky who are sitting at the top. Really, they're bookending the top three who are K'd up in Fairy Peak. Flakes is third, Ronicky is fifth in terms of goal per games, and you need to go all the way down to the very middle of the table, an average of less than like half a goal per game is Devo, but just put him on defense and it's seemingly to be working right now. After his tremendous performance, he stops and saves per game, and why not? It works. Let's have it work. And it's nice that every single player can actually contribute to goals up in the attack, but if it just excuse me, it's Ronicky who's actually in the top with the most saves in the game right now, so that's even greater. But hey, if you can have three strikers, have two strikers and a defender. Bluey recently in Rival Series has also been, perhaps not intentionally, but when Bluey was found in a defense, it was incredibly hard for any team playing against him to break him down. You know, even as you just rushing down the field, if you need to win on Bluey, it's a hard job to do. And yeah, I mean, why not? It could be a shift in the meta just a little bit, or at the very least, it's a good counter to, hey, everyone attacks and it works. Hey, we saw that it definitely worked. Reciprocity made so many shots, some incredible shot to save differences, or even like shot to goal differences, and that series between Team Reciprocity and FCB Barcelona. But I mean, it works. It's hard to really argue about that against that playstyle if we saw the results.
Well, again, there was always a caveat on this show, and the caveat this time has got to be the Reciprocity. I feel like we can officially call it. They are in a slump. You know, last week I wasn't sure if you could call. I wasn't sure if you could tell because of the Veloce sort of result. But this week it was so obvious. Like, these guys are not performing in the same sort of way. I think that even with these formation issues from FCB, like, you know, Shawset is not performing in the way that he did in Valencia. You know, I don't think that Ferris up to the plate. I don't think that I mean, Fruity's not the kind of man who would, of course, you know, become a striking element. He's the team captain and a relatively supportive role in Reciprocity, but it's like, you know, as a whole, this team feels like it's in a really big slump at the moment, and that's not a great sort of like encouraging sign, especially when you consider that, you know, this is a team that traditionally have struggled on LAN but done well online. Now they're struggling online, and what was the last LAN they went to? They went out in last place. So, like, Reciprocity might be in a lot of trouble at the moment. And I say that because you look at this series, and, you know, I don't think a massive amount of this came down to FCB being particularly good, but Reciprocity just felt like they were struggling big time. Like, yes, they had some good players and they had some really flashy moments with FCB showing that they were a really exciting squad, but I also think the Reciprocity dropped the ball literally on a couple of occasions throughout this series.
Well, I feel like the next week we're really going to be pinpoint really whether Reciprocity is having a bad time, a slump, or whether it just was a one-off, or again, an incredibly great series from FC Barcelona. Result of Reciprocity versus Veloce, I won't be able to say a lot about that, but it's at some point it's got to give. It's great that Reciprocity were having such great results in online tournaments, but I feel like just mentally their performances on lands had to catch up with them at some point. And so even here, everyone's constantly improving at all time, and perhaps Reciprocity just struggling just a little bit. I've heard folks say that they have been struggling to really utilize every single player on that team, struggling to figure out how every single one of them, what role every single one of the players in that team has. Chosette has been on and off throughout the weeks, and you can't possibly rely on Chosette if he's might be having the best game of his life, and then all of a sudden he just drops out of the planet of the Earth. And that seemingly is their problem right now, just finding their identity, despite having the same players for God knows how long. It feels like they're just struggling to really find they have the ingredients, they just don't know how to mix them well together, and that is hurting their results a lot. And that's crisis in identity, definitely not helping them mentally either.
No, not a lot's helping Reciprocity at the moment. And as you say, next week will end up being quite telling as to how well they really stand, because that's the 2-round week, as we all know. With the delays with the delays obviously from the first week, obviously getting cancelled and everything. So. Yeah, Reciprocity have a lot to prove going into next weekend for me. Obviously, this was against a pretty decent team, so I'm not really sure where they stand on that front, but I am starting to see the signs of what may well be a big slump from a team that we thought may have well been the best coming in this series. Apparently, we may be completely wrong on that front. But speaking of teams that completely shit the bed this week, AS Monaco are among that camp. Look, man, they did so well in Rival Series. What the fuck is going on here? I fucking hated the TSM series. Now, to start things off, okay, they lost to Renault Vitality. Fine, sure. Renault Vitality are great, and they showed signs of promising team play as well in their series against the AS Monaco in a way that I think the Alpha's finally looking like he's going to fit in this roster rather than just be a bit of a third wheel to K-Up and Fairy Peak. But the series against TSM was a shit show. An actual fucking shit show. If you haven't watched it, don't go and watch it. It's boring. So boring and so bad. A mistake fest between both sides, and to the point where I was questioning whether either side really deserved to win the fucking series in the first place. It was terrible. Absolutely terrible. AS Monaco only knew how to punish mistakes from TSM and potentially bring something to light in terms of, Igonet's performance, which I think was the best player on the field at that time. But the defensives from both squads were terrible, and AS Monaco just ended up coming out on the bottom of that result, exclusively down to what I just think was the case of TSM, saved more mistakes, ASM, got punished more times than TSM did, in my opinion. That's all it came down to. And both of these teams, just expanding on what we've seen from TSM in the last couple of weeks, both of these teams were fucking tragic. Absolutely tragic from this series. I am not impressed whatsoever. This was terrible. Utterly terrible.
Enough said.
You have nothing to add to that.
Absolutely nothing. That is it. That is, I know what you're talking about, and that's it. That was some atrocious Rocket League, and yes, Team Solimids sort of were the dominant force in that matchup. Monaco were stuck on defense, really not doing much in the attack, but in the end, as a series as a whole, both teams would rather forget it. Us fans and just casual watchers would rather forget it and better tune into something else. I wish I never
watched it, to be honest, mate. I mean, no. Just fucking no.
I've heard people saying that this is the Rival Series caliber of a game, just a slump. And again, that is an insult to Rival Series because it has some great matches, but this one, nobody would care if it didn't happen. Yeah, nobody would care if that series just disappeared.
Do not be fooled by that 3-2. It was competitive for all the wrong reasons. It was just fucking mistakes loads of mistakes and loads of bad touches and loads of people flying past the fucking ball. Like, not even Metzenaris was looking good. And it's like Metzenaris, I think, probably could be one of the better elements of TSM. You know, the Magnus-Metzenaris combo has not worked for them. Remco is washed to fuck, even though he got the highest ranking of all the players on TSM. Like, I don't know where you go from here. I don't know where you go from here for TSM. And right now, every single victory against them is going to be a free pass for me. Like, they could well end up being within the bottom two. They'll definitely, I think, be in the promotion playoffs. AS Monaco, however, may have just taken the auto demotion slot just by losing this series by proxy. So, you know, it was going to be a battle of the shit shows. That's exactly what we thought it would be. That's exactly what it came out to be. Yeah, not enjoying this one at all. Like, just both of these teams do not deserve to be here. And that series was case in point. Anyways, let's move on and talk about Mousesports and Dignitas. This was our highlight match of last week when we brought it up. That was the highlight match that we wanted to highlight from last week. And we said this would end up being close. And yeah, it was close. It was actually a pretty good series here, Jam. But you'll notice that the storyline that I put in the document was Mousesports go back to choking. That's exactly how it describes their handle on this series. They were 2-0 up, looking great, looking awesome. They had that close OT in the first game, but in the second game, they were so fucking confident. They were looking like they were in full control. Series under lock and key. The offensive was going great. And then game 3 happened. And then, started losing a little bit of control. Then a lot of control. Then their positionings were shot to hell. Then their touches were fucking unconfident. A shot accuracy was falling to bits. And the formation that they had with the two players... the two players that went forward and the one player holding back, which of course was Cookseer Speed going forward and Scrub Killer holding back. That formation that got them so far in games 1 and 2 just got broken down by themselves, not by Dignitas by doing anything special. I mean, obviously Dignitas were playing amazing. They were just playing against the Mousesports that had a really good time in games 1 and 2. But by proxy of their own changes and sacrificing nothing that needs to be sacrificed, they fucking choked the reverse sweep. Mousesports, what the fuck happened? Like, what the fuck actually happened here?
Honestly, this could be something of a downward slope that they've even started in the previous season. They started season 8 really well. They had wins against Dignitas. They had wins against FC Barcelona. Actually, let me quickly double check. A loss to TSM, which, all right, let's forget that. But wins against Barcelona, wins against Renault Vitality. Once again, Dignitas 3-0. That was, I remember this being one of the craziest results of that season. Mousesports all of a sudden just stomping Dignitas. Those were close matches, but still. But then during the last week, where Mouse could really cement their position in the standings, they lost to Veloce. They lost to Reciprocity. Reciprocity, of course, ended up the season as a top team. Then Mousesports didn't qualify for land by losing to Renault Vitality 4-0. And even this season has not had much for Mouse. They won against AS Monaco. They lost against Reciprocity. They won against Singularity again, knowing how Singularity is currently performing with at least one of their players really not carrying their weight. Mousesports, I feel like, just could not recover, and it still seems like if I look at the team as a whole. Thankfully, I don't think it's Cookser necessarily who's currently having a bad time. It is not even sure who to give it to. Could it be Speed?
Here's the thing. It's not to do with any one particular player, I don't think. I don't think it has to do with any one individual kind of fucking this up. I just think it's a case that Mousesports as a whole, for some reason, they just get complacent or something, or they just get overconfident, and then they fucking throw away a 2-0 lead. You know, something stupid like that. You know, I don't understand what's going on with this squad, because it was the exact same thing as last season. You remember 4 series they had to win only 1 in order to qualify for LAN, and they fucked up all 4. You know, and you know, credit where it's due. You know, this is against the top team in the league right now, but legit, when I say that Mousesports were playing on another level, they were playing on a completely different level. They were playing like the best team in the championship series at that point. You know, they were so good, and then they just choked. They just choked. Just choked so fucking hard. And I don't understand what it is about the choking aspect of Mousesports, but now it's becoming a point where it's a serious problem. Last season, we said, okay, it was a one-off. It was a big fuck up, a big fucking choke, and a big disappointment on their part. But next season, they got Scrub Killer, awesome. They've got a big prospect in one of the most, one of the best defensive elements from his time, and they still can't get the job done in the server. Like, I'm not sure. Like, this is the reason why I say, Mousesports might be the team that most need a coach like Gregan to jump in and fucking, fix shit up, because Lethem is doing, a great job in my opinion, but like, I don't know how much of a life coach he is, and right now that's what Mousesports needs, because if they keep choking like this, then they're never going to be able to live up to the hype and expectations that we expect out of players like this, all of whom have been major land champions, two of whom who have been, world champions in the past. This is a squad that we should expect greatness from, but we are not seeing that from these guys, and it's all because of mentality and choking being a big problem for Mousesports.
And you know what? Saying that, I do really then agree with you that they need perhaps a little bit of a mentality shift, and with that, someone with experience such as Gregan might indeed help. Who knows? Maybe in the end, the Mousesports players just like to be choked. I mean, I don't judge. Some people like that.
Okay, that went places I did not want it to go. But on the flip side of this whole matchup, obviously, was the fact that Dignitas staying up in the top position, completely undefeated, 4-0 as of here in this week. And do you know what? Fucking fair play to them. Like, these guys, we did not see Dignitas being, a top team. We saw them being a top team. We didn't expect them to be the top team in the league. We were obviously pinning the likes of Reno Vitality being the top team with the alpha move. We were taking a look at Mousesports saying, well, they could be a contender for the top team. Yeah. But this season is Dignitas. And you know what? Considering their World Championship run, considering how they kind of ride in the highs of going so far at the last season Worlds, like, this is a big sort of opportunity for them, and right now they're just taking every single step as a stride forward on their radar. They have gotten most of the big sort of non-issues out of the way with TSM, ASM, Singularity, and all those guys falling out of the way. I mean, then now the squads that they have to face are the really tough ones. Obviously, started with Mousesports here. They managed to beat them. They've got FC Barcelona next week. They've got Reno Vitality the week after. Their doubleheader takes on Endpoint and Veloce, and then they close out against Reciprocity. So they've still got some big squads to come up against, but right now, with the way that they're playing, they're looking actually really good. Really, really good.
I mean, it's credit what's credit's due. They had a horrible start to the previous season. At some point, they were 1-3 in the league, but they've turned it around, managed to go for a 4-3, qualified for lands, went to take the 4th spot. So definitely whatever changes they have made in between those weeks seemingly still continues into the season. While saying all of that, I feel like 3 of the wins right now that they have during this season are, again, against the weaker teams. And knowing that teams only play each other once, it's sort of hard to get the midpoint of the season, because every single team would have played against all the different teams. They're performing well against, but could they... I've mentioned overinflation at some point. I'll be perhaps the devil's advocate and say, great, perhaps they're continuing their run that they've started in the previous season and at Worlds, but the level of the teams that they're going to be playing against in the coming weeks, specifically the next 2 weeks, Barcelona and Reno Vitality, that could actually knock Dignitas down a peg. And still, no question about that, they're going to be in contention for the for regional qualifiers. Top two places, even maybe automatic qualification for the finals. But right now their run is, I mean, spirits definitely are high in their camp right now, but
yeah,
just a little doubt in my head is saying, well, let's see how the next 2 weeks go.
Yes, let's see how well the next 2 weeks go for them. However, for the moment, they are riding the highs of the championship series. And speaking of the next 2 weeks, Jam, we have 2 weeks rolled into one. Actually, interestingly enough, because due to the issues we had on week 1 where the servers shit the bed and we couldn't actually play the RLCS out, so I decided to combine week 5 and week 6 into 1 week, essentially. So we'll be playing out a lot of fucking matches. Quite a lot of matches, with the 8th and the 9th being the big days where the European Championship Series takes place on the Sunday and the Monday. So quite a lot of shit going down. For this one, usually we would highlight our one match, one highlight match, and then a bunch of honorable mentions. But this time I'm actually going to take 2 highlight matches. I'm going to ask you for 2 this week. So one from round 5, one from round 6. Tell me which matches you'd say are the feature matches of their respective weeks.
I'd say Barcelona versus Dignitas in week 5, or like the first part of week 5. Renault Vitality versus Reciprocity also looks great. Both of these matchups for the same reasons. With Barcelona versus Dignitas, we're going to see whether Dignitas is the real deal, whether their position, their undefeated record actually is true, how they perform against the best teams. And for Renault Vitality versus Reciprocity is to see whether Reciprocity's slump is actually what it looks like, an actual slump. Big test for both of these teams, but if I only had to go for one, I think Barca versus Dignitas, because if anything, only for the fact that either Dignitas goes 5-0 or somebody finally brings Dignitas down a peg. And if looking at the week 6 or the second bunch of matches, again, Renault Vitality versus Dignitas. 2 teams that are currently...
That'll be such a fun one, I think.
Riding the highs, and that is the final match of that match day. So crazy stuff. If not that, then Veloce versus Mouse could be basically a battle of 2 really strong teams. None of them who are considering to be the potential champions of this season, but I feel like both of them have enough bark and bite in them to make this for an entertaining series.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you on both of those. The Dignitas series, it seemed like they're the most the most sort of obvious ones to pick, just because of how good they could potentially be. Honorable mention goes to the Vitality vs Reciprocity series, and maybe the Veloce Mousesports series. I think that could be a really interesting one for Mousesports to see whether they can go far in that one. But again, we're going to ask for predictions. So top to bottom from round 5, then top to bottom from round 6. Give me your teams to win and by what score lines. And again, these will count towards Bacon because fuck you.
Actually, if Bacon's still watching, it will be interesting to hear his, how close did I get to his predictions? How many did I get? Well, if not right, then the same. Oh boy, and immediately I get a struggle with the very first one. TSM versus Singularity.
This is not a struggle for me. Even though I know that Singularity have been disappointing, they haven't been quite disappointing as TSM to me. Like, at the very least, Singularity are playing a fucking, style of Rocket League that has some cohesion. TSM are not. Even though the talent level of TSM might bring it close, like, for me, Singularity still should be able to take this one, in my opinion. But maybe you got... I'm not gonna give my predictions to after you've done yours. So go on, mate. Go
on. 3-2 in favor of Singularity. I think that's going to be the first game. 3-0 in favor of Veloce against Monaco. Reciprocity versus Endpoint. Reciprocity have to win this one, but Endpoint would be able to take at least one game, so 3-1 for Reciprocity. 3-0 in favor of Mouse versus TSM. Just, again, TSM. FCB Barcelona versus Dignitas. Oh boy! Now this is the big one. You know what? 3-2 in favor of Barcelona. This could really be it for Dignitas. Yeah, I feel like if we're gonna take the what we saw from Barcelona during this week or during the previous week, then I feel like Barcelona will have the upper hand. Again, 5 games, so. It's gonna come down to just the final effort, and I could see Dignitas winning that one, but I'm going to go with Barcelona, especially since seemingly by your reaction, you're supporting Dignitas. Is going to be a little bit of a battle between your prediction and
no. I was going to say,
prediction.
is like, I think that's a bold prediction, but I completely understand the thinking behind it. Okay. Like, fair play. I wouldn't have picked that, but that's your choice. So go on, continue, mate.
That's Bacon's choice. Now,
officially it is, yeah.
It is officially Bacon's choice. And Vitality versus Reciprocity. I said Reciprocity 3-1 versus Endpoint. It's hard to call this one before we really know the extent of Reciprocity's performance. Again, slump or no slump. Knowing how Vitality were playing, and let me quick look at it. A 3-2 to Vitality.
3-2?
Like
really?
3-2. I don't think Reciprocity had some surprises in them, and I can see them winning a series against Arena Vitality, but perhaps not this week. 3-2 to Vitality.
Okay. I'll do my predictions, then we'll move on to the second week. For me, it's got to be Singularity taking TSM's taking the match against TSM at 3-1. I don't think they're that good, but I don't think TSM are great either. So Singularity for me have to take that win. Veloce, similar scoreline, 3-1 above AS Monaco. Excuse me. I think that Endpoint actually might take the series above Reciprocity at 3-2. Just because I think Reciprocity are in a slump. Yeah. If Mousesports lose to TSM, then fuck me, the choke is hard. But you know, yes, I know. But
everyone's
that should be a 3-0.
By that point, then, really.
Yeah, by that point, we might as well just flip a coin. Just flip a coin. Flip a coin and throw a dice and see what just throw a 3-sided dice and figure out where it goes from there.
It's a 4. I rolled a 4. God knows what that means.
So yeah, Mousesports 3-0. Dignitas, I think, are going to go above FC Barcelona. I think they'll still be 3-2 though. I think that's going to be a really close series. And for me, Run of Vitality should be able to win against Reciprocity 3-1. Just because of that slump. Just because of that slump from Reciprocity. I don't think the round 5 is going to be a very good round for them. But yeah, no, I mean, some of the matches are pretty easy to predict. Maybe the only one that could be bold is the Endpoint Reciprocity game for me, in my terms of my predictions. I mean, Reciprocity could take that one, but I think that it will still be a close affair. I think Endpoint, if they come into this on form, which they have been doing relatively consistently for the last couple of weeks, yeah, I think they'll have a good time.
I mean, since you have your trust in your evaluation of Reciprocity right now, so I can completely understand our prediction of Endpoint over Reciprocity. Right, so
round 6. Tell me, what are your predictions for all those games?
3-1 to Barcelona versus Singularity. Endpoint. I'm gonna believe in Endpoint, really. TSM either make or break week 5. So it's their time to really, if any time to pop off, then it's that time. But based on my predictions for that week, I feel like best TSM can do is be spoilers in the week 6 and moving on from that point on. And I don't think I even have trust in that. I'm going to say 3-2 in favor of Endpoint, just because maybe TSM managed to scrounge out the last efforts, but not a win. Veloce versus Mousesports. To the series that we both are feeling like it's going to be a powerful one. But who to give it to? You know what? I'm going to try to go with Veloce. So just because they are still doing a fine job, and it still feels like they have plenty of more surprises to bring out. 3-2. So another close one to Veloce versus Mousesports. Reciprocity versus Monaco, gonna be a 3-0. Even with Reciprocity's form, you look at Monaco and you think, ugh, that's even worse. And Vitality versus Dignitas. I said I think Barcelona's going to win against Dignitas. This is a coin flip, really. I'm going to say, let's go 3-2 to Dignitas.
Okay.
Oh, really? It's incredibly hard for me to pick between those two.
Yeah, so I'm going to go 3-1 for FC Barcelona above Singularity, 3-1 for Endpoint above TSM. Fucking hell, that Veloce series for me is the coin flip, because if Mousesports choke it again, which I think that they might just do, then we'll probably be seeing a 3-2 to the favor of Veloce. That's going to be my prediction for that one. I think Reciprocity will still struggle against AS Monaco a little bit, but not so much as to go any higher than a 3-1. They'll still take the matchup, obviously. And I'm riding the Dignitas hype train against Vitality, 3-2. If Vitality do show the rest of their team formation that they were setting the stage for here this week against Reciprocity, then I think that they'll have a decent shot to take it above Dignitas. Again, this is going to be a close one. I think both the Dignitas series are going to be close. And that's what you have to look forward to in week 5/6 of the RLCS. I mean, take from that as what you will, because that will most certainly end up being a very fun time. Again, double round weeks this time, Jam. So a lot of Rocket League action to be seen over the course of the weekend.
I'm currently trying to figure out how it's gonna go with. It's gonna be Sunday and Monday. Surprisingly enough, yeah, that's gonna be crazy. But I'm assuming they did not want to prolong the season any longer, because if they would have the playoffs where the teams who are actually going somewhere would be defined, then it would be less than a month until the LAN, and you want to buy your tickets, you want to form your visas. And knowing that it's in an A again, it's some tough stuff. I mean, Shogun still can get into an A after all these years, and he has tried. God knows he has tried. Well, hey, but at the very least, we're just going to get a really strong dose of Rocket League over what? We're going to have Friday for Rival Series, basically 4 straight days of Rocket League. I'm not complaining, really.
Yeah, especially in the EU region. So there you go. That's going to be a fun little time for everybody involved in the Rocket League Championship Series and the Rival Series. So we will be sure to see you all over the course of that whole thing. Unfortunately, they won't be able to bring you a live show due to the fact that TCS also starts up on Monday. So me and Bacon are going to be real busy boys, and we just can't find time in the schedule to go live on Twitch. So if you are interested in following the show and you are watching live on Twitch or watching the video versions, and again, YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iTunes, and TuneIn, alongside 7 other audio distribution platforms, you can go to anchor.fm/RLAfterShock to find your favorite platform or request your favorite way to listen. And of course, I think Bacon is going to return next week when his throat is feeling a little bit better to do the viewing parties for the RLCS on Sunday and Monday. Not on Monday, actually, because we'll be working on Monday. But you'll get the chance to catch him doing his thing, hopefully to get the Rival Series in there as well, because, that's also something that he's been trying to work on. But keep your eyes on all the action going on twitch.tv/RLAfterShock. And, of course, you can join the Discord in the show notes and video descriptions of every single episode of the podcast, where you can ask us mailbag questions, like one has come in during the course of this show, and also have the chance to take part in the pick and prediction game for the Rival Series and Championship Series this week. Again, Dexter's going to get those results out as soon as his broadband is fixed, so keep your eyes on that channel if you are involved in that. And we'll be back next week for even more of the podcast. Obviously, hopefully Bacon will be better by that point. But Jam, do you fancy doing another show if he's not?
I mean, sure. We've sort of set the expectations today, and we might as well unfold them and unravel them next time if the need appears. But again, hopefully Bing is going to feel better. I don't think he has a lot of talking to do in the next couple of days and this week.
Actually, no, he is on to broadcast with me for Arena Clash tomorrow in the studio. So. Uh-oh is right. Well,
keep him heavily medicated and supplied with hot tea with lemon and honey, please.
Well, get better in the next 24 hours, Bacon, else I'm going to be pissed. And we'll hopefully see him back. We'll hope to see him back in next week for the rest of the podcast. But Jam, have you enjoyed your time today and for standing in for Mr. Sick Bacon?
Yeah, absolutely. It's always a blast to be here at RLAfterShock. Enjoyed our time over in Valencia. Oh, not what Valencia. Valencia was something different. Madrid. When we were recording the live everyone in the room version of RLAfterShock as well. And always to be happy back any time of day.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us, man. And of course, thank you all at home for joining us here on RLAfterShock. Again, we'll be back next week with a recorded version of the show. That'll probably be the case for the next month or so while we get through the rest of the Arena Clash and the TCS Esports League. We'll probably be bringing the shows back on Tuesdays on the Twitch channel. So again, make sure you're following the Twitch channel to be notified of when we go live. But till that point, though, I've been the Eternal J. This has been Jared Jam, and we'll see you back here next week for even more of the Aftershock.